All right, everybody, welcome back to the best damn training channel on YouTube. I am at the tail end of my training session today. We're gonna run some sub-max 40s, which means I'm just gonna go 40-meter sprints, going about 90% through all the way. So I'll sprint hard for like the first 10 to 15, work on that acceleration, and then get into a feeling of feeling smooth and easy as I get through this last 10 meters. But as we get through today's session, I'm gonna be reviewing the FREELAP versus the new OVR Sprint, because this is probably the most requested video that I've been asked over the last month or so. So OVR sent me out these devices about 3 weeks ago, and I've been playing around with them for the first 3 weeks of this new program. And FREELAP sent me out some of their devices, I would say probably about 6 months ago. So both of these companies sent me the devices. I didn't pay for either or, so I should let you guys know that up front. OVR did agree to set up a discount link for you guys. So if you guys want to buy anything from the OVR website, whether it's the Sprint, the Jump, or the VBT, you can use the link, get $25 off, save a little bit of money. When I asked FREELAP if they wanted to do something similar, they declined. So I'm not gonna let that sway me one way or the other or create some sort of a bias as I'm setting this up for you guys. I'm gonna give you guys an honest review, tell you guys what I like and don't like about both of them, and then you guys can decide what you wanna do. So we're talking about setup. What I would like to point out is the ease of setup for both of these is pretty much identical. The only thing you have to remember is with the FREELAP, you have to give yourself that 80 centimeter lead. That way you can make sure that the trigger isn't going to go off prior to your start point or your finish point. With the OVR, you can just set it up exactly where it's at because it is a beam system. So if you don't have a tape measure exactly, let's say you're on a football field, give yourself that 1 yard where you're putting the cone at. Even though like you're going to run a 40, you have to put the cone at 41. That way it's not triggering too early. But if you're on a track, make sure that you're setting it up with that 80 centimeter if you have a tape measure. Otherwise, if you're using just like hash marks or something on the track, you could put them on the exact hash mark, but just know that you have that 80 centimeter kind of lead as you set that up. Now with the OVR, what I like to do is set these up about hip height. Once you turn on both ends of these, if they sense each other, you're gonna get a green light on both ends. When you have the FREELAP cone set up, turned on, you've got a start, lap, and a finish. So you just have to make sure that you want whatever finish line you're at, that cone needs to be on a finish. And then whatever starting point you're at, that cone needs to be on a start. Once the green lights are blinking on the FREELAP, you know it's good to go. Once the green lights are on the OVR, you know it's good to go and you're ready to sprint. So the one negative thing I would say about the OVR though, is that it takes up a lot more space than the FREELAP. The FREELAP is gonna be a much smaller footprint. So if you're someone who trains with other people around, not necessarily training partners, but just people who are also gonna be using the track, as you can see here, I have to have a device on either side of the lane, kind of sticking out into other lanes. So you could be the person who's a little bit of a nuisance and taking up too much space. But for the most part, if you train alone or you train at a time where there's not a lot of people around, then setting this up is gonna be no problem for you. As per the setup, I think both of them are great. Now you can also test the OVR to make sure that the beam is there. Not only do you have the green light, but you also have that beep. So if you can swing through, you hear the beep, that you know it's working. And now we're gonna start running some sub-max 40s. So the idea here is I'm gonna run hard for probably the first 10 to 15, and then I'm gonna get to about 90% and try to just maintain 90% all the way through. I'll have the FREELAP chip on my hip, and we're also gonna have the OVR time here, and we're gonna see what those times look like compared to each other. So let's get after it. All right, FREELAP gave us a 104. Let's come over here to the OVR system. And it gave us a 105. All right, now that the first rep is done, we can talk about the system and how you can get times on your rep. With the FREELAP, you have to use an app, and you download it to your device. It could be a phone, it could be an iPad, whatever it is, but you have to use some sort of external device. The thing I like the most about the OVR is that it gives me the time on the system, so I don't have to use my phone if I don't want to. Now OVR does have an app that you can also track everything with as well. So they both have an app, and I think the majority of people would end up using the app because the app will be like your training log. So if I were to use the app today and time everything with the OVR, I could save that data and then come back next week and see what I did and keep track of it. Same thing in the FREELAP. I can also go back to the calendar, look at what I did last week, and be able to see those times and see the distances that I did on each of those. So they're both very similar in terms of how you can read, but the added benefit of not having to use your phone if you don't want to is a plus. Because I'm using the FREELAP today, I have to use my phone. And the one problem with the FREELAP is you have the app here. If you were to not have the app running, and let's say you wanted to film that rep, FREELAP won't time that rep because the app isn't the thing that's up front on the phone showing at the screen. So if I were to turn my camera on and want to film that rep, I wouldn't be able to do that. With the OVR app, it allows you to do that and still give you your time, which is a plus in terms of how you can use that app. It's a very small, nuanced detail on that, but I feel like for some people, especially people who want to post their times on social media and do stuff like that, like you can't do that with the FREELAP unless you have 2 cameras. With the OVR, it does let you do that. So app usage, there's a give and take on both of those. I don't think that's going to be like a deal breaker for anybody though. The one thing that using the app does is specifically, let's say for the FREELAP, is I can see not only the time, but I can see my speed in miles per hour. I could also set this up to where I can see stride length and stride frequency. And the reason why I can do that is because the chip is going to be able to monitor all of that. So you get a little bit more measurable data using the chip than just having 2 laser beams. With the OVR, as soon as you trip the first beam, all you're really doing is getting that second beam tripped, and then there's a time. Now I can go back and say 105 is X amount of miles per hour and do the math myself, or ask ChatGPT to do it. So I don't need the app to tell me that. But in terms of stride length and stride frequency, you do have to have this chip in order to get that. So if you are somebody who works with athletes at a higher level, or you want to be a little bit more specific with your training, I think having a chip like this could be beneficial for you. But note, this chip, the FX Motion that just came out from FREELAP, does not come with the standard set. So if you buy the standard set of 2 cones and a sensor, you're gonna get a yellow sensor, and the yellow sensor just does time. It doesn't have the accelerometer that this thing has in it, where it can track steps and it can track stride frequency and all that kind of stuff. So you won't get all that data. You'll essentially just get times and speed because it'll do the math for you in the app. Overall, in terms of how you can get your readings, both of them are gonna give you fairly similar numbers, what it seems like so far. So I got a 104 on the FREELAP, a 105 on the OVR. So we're gonna run another rep here and see if that consistency stays through. All right, FREELAP gave me a 107. Let's walk over here. OVR gave me a 107.5. So very consistent so far in terms of times. 104 versus a 105 on the first one, 107, 107 on the second one. So they're very accurate in comparison to each other. You'll notice a difference is I'm getting a 107 on the FREELAP and then a 107.5 on the OVR. And the reason why the OVR can be a little bit more specific on that time is because it is a beam system. And the biggest discrepancy I think people have with the FREELAP and myself from using it for the past couple of years is you have to trust that it's showing you the right time, because it's not a laser beam where it's like you trigger this laser and then you trigger this laser. It's a sensor and it has that 80 centimeter radius around it at which you have to run past. It picks up the chip and then you run past it again and then it'll start and stop the time. Now, FREELAP says on their website that it's accurate within 0.02. And I reached out to FREELAP probably last week, told them I was gonna make this video and asked them if they have any data about that 0.02. And they sent me a screenshot of some testing that they did with the FREELAP system against the Omega system, which is what they use at like world championship track and field events at the Olympics for all of their races that they do. And they showed me a screenshot of there was 13 times that were ran with the FREELAP versus the Omega. I'll have to look up the exact numbers, but essentially what it was is 3 of the times the Omega and the FREELAP were the exact same. So it was accurate to the Omega system. I think 4 of the times the FREELAP was faster than the Omega by like 1/100th or so. I think it was 2/100th is the fastest discrepancy in terms of how much faster the FREELAP was compared to the Omega. And then 6 of the times the FREELAP was slower than the Omega by 0.02. Even though FREELAP will say it's accurate within 0.02, you don't know which direction that's accurate in. It could be exactly Like 107 could be a 107, which I'm based off the two here. I'm gonna say 107 is probably pretty damn accurate. The 104 versus the 105, that shows you there's at least a 100th discrepancy there. But if you just have the FREELAP system up and you're running sprints and it shows you one flat, you don't know if that's a 0.98 or if it's a 102. So even though it's a 0.02 accuracy, right, that up or down swing really means like you're within a 0.04, because you don't know if it's 0.02 up or 0.02 down. So you have to have a little bit of faith that the FREELAP system is going to be accurate. I think with an in-beam system, so like the OVR, you have a laser beam, it gives a lot more trust and a lot more validity to the times that you run, because you know you have to trigger a laser and then trigger a laser. It's not just a radius sensor that you have to run past. I'm gonna do 2 more reps here. FREELAP gave us a 103. OVR gave us a 1042. FREELAP 104. OVR 104. All right, final thoughts. First off, training was good. 95% efforts, hitting 103s, 104s was pretty damn good. As we continue on this new program, which I do have on Train Heroic, by the way, link down in the bio, $29 a month. You can do everything you see, not today, but in previous videos, and have access to a group chat, have access to programming 6 days a week for as long as you'd like to stay with the program. For $29 a month, I think is a damn good offer. But enough plugging my training systems. Final thoughts on the review. I think with the times that I saw on both of those, they're relatively close to each other. I think the FREELAP was about 100th faster a couple times, but overall pretty similar to each other. So I think timing wise, you're not seeing a huge discrepancy between one or the other. It definitely wasn't over that 0.02 that FREELAP says they're accurate within. So that shows that they have probably done enough tests with their timing systems versus others to where they know they can say like this is accurate within 0.02, because the biggest discrepancy that I saw was a 0.01, and then a couple of those reps were actually identical as well. So it shows that the FREELAP is accurate in comparison to like an in-beam laser system. I think the biggest deciding factor on whether you're going to want to go with an OVR or you're going to want to go with a FREELAP is going to come down to price and availability. The price on the OVR, if you want to get the same setup you saw here, the tripods and the 4 sensors, is I think it's around $550, give or take. I don't know the exact number on that. The starting price for the FREELAP, so if you want to get 2 cones and the yellow sensor, not the FX motion, the yellow sensor, I think that starts at around $650, give or take again. So you got about $100 difference in between the two for the basic setups for either of them. Now, if you want to get the FX motion chip, it's the one that's going to show you the stride length and stride frequency data, that's an extra $200 for that chip. So you're going from $650 to $800 to get that set up, to get started on it. Now, I don't think that that chip is necessary for everybody. I really only think that that's kind of like marketed more towards coaches, because most people just want to see like how fast was I and what was the time. They don't care about the stride length, stride frequency, and the extra data that they're going to get from something like an FX motion. So I don't think this is for everybody. But like I said, they sent this out to me so I can test with and play with it. Keep that in mind, is that you don't have to have this chip. You can get a basic one that'll give you your times, and it's going to be pretty much the same as the OVR. But $100 difference between the two might sway somebody one way or another. But I think the biggest thing is availability. If you're in the market for a timing system right now, OVR is not going to be the option for you, because they're back ordered until November, last I checked, which means you have a month and a half-ish right now before you're going to be able to get your hands on something. So if you're someone who is going to be looking at getting something to start training with next week, FREELAP is going to be the option for you. You're going to have to pay $100 more for that, but at least you're going to get your hands on something right now and be able to go and train and test and do all the things that you want to do when it comes to timing your sprints. But overall, we're gonna do like a full review here. Ease of setup, both of them are pretty much the same. You just have to keep in mind, OVR takes up a little bit more of a footprint, so you gotta be cautious if people are gonna be around you, that you're not getting in their way, being a nuisance, and just maybe tell people like, hey, I just need this little area here, is that okay? And most people probably are gonna be like, yeah, that's fine. They can run around it for the lap that they're gonna be running on. FREELAP, very simple, set the cone down and you're done. but you have to remember that you need that 80 centimeter zone so you can make sure that you're timing yourself at the right spots. You can't put it on the finish line. You have to put it 80 centimeters past the finish line. Ease of use. Like I said, FREELAP, you have to use the app. OVR, you don't have to use the app, but I don't think that's a big deal. You're still getting a read. What I would love to see is FREELAP could just put like a little LED screen down here and just give me my time. I would love that. And that would make this thing substantially better, where I don't have to use my phone every single time, because I don't like having to have my read on this when sometimes I want to film and be able to break down like, this one looked choppy. This one, I can tell I'm rushing it, or that one looked good. Like, I can't film and get a time if I'm using the FREELAP. I can film and get a time if I'm using the OVR, because the OVR system has the time screen on the device. Now, and we already went over accuracy, they're fairly accurate, within 0.01 of each other, which I think is a very negligible amount when you're looking at trying to get accurate times and consistent times over the course of multiple reps, multiple sessions, multiple weeks throughout a training cycle, and everything on that. So that's the review. I think they're both good. Like I said, OVR set up a discount code with me. You can save $25 if you want to buy any of their devices, not just the Sprint. But keep in mind, the Sprint's not available for another month plus right now. FREELAP, they didn't set up a discount code with me, so I have nothing to give you on that. If they ever want to, I would love to do that. I think it's great. I love giving you guys options to save money on things that you want to get. I'm not tied to any one of these brands. If OVR sees this review and they go, you know, we didn't like that, we're going to take away the discount code, I don't really care, because I think I'm just here trying to give you guys the best information so you guys can make better decisions and maybe save some money along the way if you care about saving money, or just help make the best choice for whatever options you have for your Sprint setup. So that's going to be it for today. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.